Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneurs Show, where we celebrate the innovators driving change in the education industry. At Edison OS, we've worked with over 500 knowledge entrepreneurs to turn their edtech ideas into profitable businesses. Hi, Chris. Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneurs Show. Thank you so much for taking time out and accepting my invite to be a guest on this show.
Yes, hello. I'm so thrilled to be here, and I'm really excited to have a conversation today.
Great. So, Chris, my first question to you. I've seen your Instagram page, and I see that you help teachers and you've helped 700 plus teachers grow their teaching business.
Yes.
But I've seen a lot of reels. But you do talk about a lot of things under this. So I'd like to hear from you. What is it that exactly that you do?
Yes. So currently, I feel like I have two businesses going on at the same time. One
Okay.
is, of course, being a full-time online teacher
Right.
with my students, specifically in China.
Right.
And my second project or business, if you will, is Create and Funnel. So I'm the co-founder of Create and Funnel. My business partner Kinga is the other half of that. And together we got into this space of creating a community to really rally online educators together who went through an experience, and maybe we can talk about this, which we also did later on. And so now we help guide them so that they know the resources, the skills, and the strategies that all encompass what is having a business, because they're awesome and great and incredible teachers already, but now it's applying those same teaching skills into their entrepreneur skills. And so, yeah, I have my personal Instagram that I opened up just about a month and a half. I did have it earlier this year, but I actually challenged myself this past month to post every single day, optimize my bio at a regular, try to really focus on the niche that I wanted to find. And so, yeah, I try to talk about many things. Um, some may say that's not the best strategy for the algorithm, but I think there's so many things that encompass being a teacher, an entrepreneur, and the combination of that, a teacherpreneur.
Yeah. Oh, and the best way to figure out what type of content that you got to double down is by putting out a variety of content, because that's
Exactly.
exactly how you validate what people are liking. So I think, yeah, I
Yes,
think that's
yes. I'm
probably the way to go about.
experimenting. I love it.
Great, great. Chris, you spoke about you being a teacher yourself with a lot of students from China
Yes.
and you helping teachers do the same. Before we
Hmm.
get to the topic of helping teachers, can you share your story of how you became a teacher
Yeah.
and what was that journey like?
Wow. Where shall I start? From like
You can start from as early as you want. Probably you can go right back to your childhood. Where did you
back to my
grow up and
childhood.
everything? Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, let's get into it. So I'm originally born and raised in Los Angeles, California,
Right.
and my family comes from Peru. They immigrated back in the 70s
Okay.
from different parts of Peru, mainly from Lima, the capital. And I don't know, and then so I kind of grew up in this duality, if you will, kind of this bridge between cultures, because I was understanding um, my this new culture that my parents didn't really understand because they were new to it. So I was kind of having to, I think, learn about the U.S. culture while at the same time teaching my parents about it. So it was this, this unspoken like lesson, I guess, throughout my childhood, where I was being raised, but I was also doing the raising as well, if you think about it that way.
Right.
And yeah, I think in thinking about my school and my academics, my parents really pushed academia. They have the thinking that, if you do well in school, then, your life path will have great success, graduating, getting a job, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I was in it. I would say I was a good student. And I think part of that was my curiosity.
Right.
And I still believe this today, that curiosity is what drives me. And I think is an essential skill for entrepreneurship, which we can talk about a little bit later.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that then I went off to college, followed the typical path of someone born in the US. I did move away from home for college. And in college, I had a lot of curiosity, which resulted in me changing career paths about 3 times.
Wow.
I
Okay.
started as an architect, actually. I
Great.
got accepted into one of the top architecture schools in the country, at Cal State, at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And then I was finding that it wasn't the right fit for me. So then I started exploring different careers through the general education classes. And then I kind of found statistics, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. Taking data and interpreting. I know, really left field. And so I kind of went into statistics for a year, basically. I switched to that. But then I don't know, I got to this point where I'm like, okay, this is cool. Interpreting data, it's awesome, very powerful. But I wanted more. I still wanted to learn more about the world and how systems work, and people in general. And so I discovered an anthropology 101 class, and it
Wow.
was mixed with geography. So I also, a fun fact about me, I love maps. I feel like I was a cartographer in another life.
Right.
And so, yeah, then I switched my career into a dual career, anthropology and geography. And that's what I graduated with. So, kind of this mixture of architecture, statistics, and then anthropology and geography. And then, yeah, it was okay. Then it was time to, like, choose the next step in life, which was supposedly to get a job.
Yeah.
And through my curiosity, I never really became a full-rounded expert in one material or subject.
Yeah.
So when it
Yeah.
came to looking for a job, it was like, okay, well, now where do I go?
Right.
And at this point in my life, entrepreneurship was not even in the realm of my reality. It was something that was not within my vision or my lens or my perspective. So then I started applying to jobs, basically, and I was lucky enough to be accepted into a nonprofit organization,
Right.
where I actually became a health educator.
Mm.
And so the first 6 months of my job was this full on, very intense training on how to educate about health topics. And that was awesome because it was learning about really key things about health that are sometimes missed in the public education system in America. And so then when I was finally told, okay, you're ready to go into the classroom, I was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to teach? How am I going to instruct? I don't know if I'm ready. Um, and I just remember the first day being very nervous, but then there was something so powerful at the end of the class, because I was able to see my students' faces comprehend something. I saw them like a little light bulb had clicked on,
Right.
and that was just a really powerful moment for me because I was like, okay, cool. If I am able to perhaps show any perspective to someone, then
Right.
maybe I can, share that curiosity nature of mine to them, which will help them in anything, I think, in their lives. So it was just really just life changing for me. And so that's kind of how I got into education and teaching
Got it. Right.
specifically.
Right. So
Um,
that
yeah.
was you being a health educator, is that right?
Yes, in
And you
person.
still
Yeah.
hadn't moved out of your home. That's the
Not
place,
yet.
right?
Yeah. I could go, I can continue if
Yes.
you'd like me to.
Yes, please. Yeah.
So my nonprofit organization was funded by government federal grants in the U.S.
Hmm.
And it was during the time that the Trump administration was in place, and unfortunately, Trump's administration political views didn't align with the processes of our nonprofit, and so our
Right.
grant was basically cut.
Okay.
And so the nonprofit was basically out of funding and was starting to let go of people.
Okay.
And so I had to like make a decision. I'm like, okay, do I find another job? Do I do something drastic? What do I do? What do I do? And so one of my colleagues within my job
Hmm.
told me about this program in Spain where you could go be English teacher, if you will.
Right.
And I was like, okay, cool, let's do it. Why not? And so I applied very last minute. I was rushing to the deadline. I had to like get so many things together. And I was kind of hopeless about it because I was like, I did it all too fast. But thankfully, I got accepted a month later. I got the letter that I was accepted into the program. And so
Okay.
that kind of finalized my phase of being a health educator in the public school system and transitioned my move into Europe as an English teacher,
Right.
teaching in the public school system here in Spain. And so that's how I went from health education into English education, or being an English teacher, basically. And
Great.
one of the learning curves for me in that instance was, realizing that just because you know the language doesn't mean you can teach it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a mind blowing moment because I was like, oh, okay, wow, my English teachers were doing awesome, incredible things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I stayed in the program for a few years. I was able to travel around Europe, visit many different places, and really explore the world. Something that I was able to do in college and my university because I did go through a study abroad program and I was able to travel for 6 months um,
Right.
through that program. So yeah, but then during the time, one of my friends introduced me to a company based in China where I got my start in teaching English online.
Mm.
And I remember that conversation really clear in my head till this
Okay.
day, obviously because it was a pivotal moment in my life. Um, I remember asking her, "Is this for real? Like, how do you mean that I get paid to teach someone online who's across the globe? That's surreal. That's irreal. That's what?" And so I went for it. I was curious, as I said, and so I opened up my profile. I applied. I got accepted, and I had my first class, and it was a very new experience, which made it feel very awkward and weird and strange. Um, and from there, I was able to grow the student following that I had, and I didn't really believe it. To be quite honest with you and really transparent, I didn't believe that this is real until I did get my first paycheck from them a month later. I was
Right.
like, I'm teaching all of these lessons. What's going to happen? Am I teaching for free? Am I going to get gypped? But no, I got paid, and um, it was a moment in my life where a new belief in me was instilled, which
Right.
was technology is here. Technology is here to revolutionize the education system. And there's so, like, this is barely scratching the surface of what is
Right.
to come. And this was back in 2016, 2017, more or less.
Right.
Um, and so I think I was kind of in it. And then obviously, when the pandemic came, it went boom, it went viral, right? What I was experiencing. And so before that, it was really isolating in a way, because
Hmm.
no one really understood what I did. But
Okay.
then post pandemic, I was able to like talk to other people and get just like an understanding of what I was doing as a job.
Right.
Um, so yeah, that's how I got into online teaching, through a company. Well, through my friend who referred me to the company.
Great. Great. That is a really wonderful journey, Chris.
Yes,
And you took up this online teaching job while you still were teaching in the public schools in Spain.
that's correct. Yes, I wanted to supplement my income, and this was the way to do it. So I was doing two jobs, three actually. I was also teaching tutoring after class.
Great.
um, so yeah.
Okay. And how many hours did you set aside for the online teaching? And there's also the time zone problems that you'd had to
Yes.
solve. How did you go about doing these things?
Um, Great question. I think through what I like to call organized chaos, if you will.
Right.
So it's kind of, for me, it's just going in, trying to figure out the times as best as I can, and implementing it, seeing what works. If it goes wrong, going back to the drawing board and, like, starting again. That's what I kind of mean when I say organized chaos. So
Right.
essentially, I had to look at the time zone differences. And what's really great about the European time zone with the Chinese time zone China, is that the morning time, the typical morning time from 9 to 5, is their evening time.
Right.
And it works out because for most Chinese students, they're taking these extracurricular classes or activities after school. So it's
Hmm.
perfect. They are having their English, they're ending their day, they're having their English class with teacher Chris, and I'm waking up and going about my typical morning working hour, if you will,
Right.
range. It was hard though when I did go back to California, because when I would visit in California, when I would go visit, I would still work because I was able to. I think that was one of the awesome things about this, was the ability to work wherever and whenever.
Yeah.
It comes with its caveats though, because in California there's a much more misaligned time zone coordination. So I was getting up at 2 a.m. in the morning and working all the way through 7 a.m. in the morning,
Right.
to be able to teach my students. I would then go back to bed, wake up about, like, sleep about 5 or 6 hours, and then try to get through my day and then kind of just repeat. But anyways, back to my time here in Europe, where I was going through my day to day. I had to teach. I had to save teaching with the online company on the weekends, and Monday through Thursday, if you will, I was teaching in the public school system, and then the afternoons I was teaching after school tutoring
After
at
school.
an
Okay.
academy, an English academy. So yeah, I was really busy. I was working about, what, 8 or 9 hours a day, and on the weekends I was working about 6, 7 hours.
Right.
So yeah,
So
I
in the
was, yeah.
beginning, you only did weekend. The online classes were only weekend.
Yeah, it was the only time I was able to, yeah, offer
Got it.
at the
Do
beginning.
you still teach in the public school in Spain,
No,
Chris?
that ended. That ended about what year are we in? That ended about
Before the
in
pandemic?
2019. Yeah, before the pandemic.
Right. Got it.
Um, yeah, and then at that moment, that's when I shifted into being a full time online English teacher and working Monday through Saturday with the online company, about 6 to 7 hours a day.
Got it. The reason I asked you that is, did you stop teaching in the public school because you saw potential in the online teaching and then you wanted to make a transition? Or it stopped for some other reason, and then since you had this going already, you just shifted into it? How was the transition
Um,
like?
yes. I saw the potential in online English teaching, and so I really wanted to not. Um, I wanted to shift my energy into this because I thought it was potential.
Right,
Um, from a business perspective and from like revenue and money talk,
right.
it was more profitable to work for this company than it was to work in a public education system. I wasn't
Right.
technically a full salary teacher. I was part of the
Hmm.
program, so
Okay.
I was in a kind of a stipend, so
Right.
that also motivated me to get into my full time so that I could have a livable, comfortable salary. So that's what kind of pushed me into that transition.
Got it, Chris. Chris, this is a question on behalf of the teachers, who are wondering, because when something's going on with a certain amount of certainty, there's a saying that you don't fix that isn't broken. So you have, even though you may not have a
Yeah.
full salary in the public education system, but you have something that's going on for you. But then you see there's something that's giving you a higher potential and stuff like that, right? So how long did you have to be with it, or how did you find the confidence to shift completely? What was that turning
Yeah.
point?
First and foremost, I have to say that I really resonate with what you said, because through different seasons of my life, I've gone through
Right,
that
right.
emotion of like, if it's not broken, why
Fix
fix
it.
it?
Yeah.
Why go through the bother of it? I'm comfortable.
Right,
Um, but it was about it came down, I think for me it was about my energy and my time. What pushed me into what always pushes me into the next season, if you will.
right.
And with this transition, I was getting up at 6 in the morning.
Hmm.
I wasn't getting home till like 9 p.m. Um, I was drained. I didn't have time to attend to other parts of my life because your professional life is one aspect
Right,
out of a big circle. And so it was scary because even though I was busy, even though I was working really hard, I was comfortable with the money that I was making. And so, yeah, it was this moment of like, okay, am I going to stop all of this and make this sudden change and kind of go for it? Am I going to stick to what I'm doing and just be comfortable? And so the moment I decided to change, I think was a moment, I remember a day in this busy schedule of mine. Everything was before I thought, before I was of the thinking that everything kind of worked like a cog machine, like everything was in sync. And so if something didn't, if that cog stalled or something went out of sync, I kind of lost it a little bit emotionally. And so I
right,
remember one day being, I was, I had just, I didn't have the greatest day at the public school job. And
Right.
then I was on my way to the academy in the afternoon.
Mm.
I was, you know, it's a silly thing. I was going on my bike breaks, I fall, like the pedal, the chain goes off. I like don't react quick enough. I fall, and I, I kind of just laid there for a second because I was like, I just laid there because I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing going from A to Z to B to D nonstop? It was just nonstop. When you have this potential to uh, work less and make more. And
Right.
so I think that was the messaging in my brain.
Got it.
How can I make more money by working less hours?
Okay.
Um, and so I just stopped everything. I finished the school year and kind of just stopped everything and then transitioned into going full time online English teaching.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And the opportunity in the online company that you were doing was always open for you to go full time. That was not a problem.
Yes, it was not a problem. I was able to open up. It worked as time slots. I was able to open up as many time slots. So I just started
Mm.
opening
Right.
up more.
Right.
I made sure to play the game, if you will, play with the rules of the company that because they would incentivize their employees
Right.
to open more slots, how you can get more bookings,
Right.
and so kind of following those guidelines to expand
Great.
on the platform.
Great. Great, Chris. Chris, now walk us through your journey starting your full-time venture with this online teaching, right? And then uh, your what what made you think that, okay, you know what, I can help others do the same as well.
Yes, yes. So so the pandemic, during the pandemic, I was, I guess, at the peak of my online teaching business within the
Right.
company.
Right.
Then um, another, from one season to another, there was a change. So in China, there was again different political views that trickled down into the day to day. You know, those decisions trickle down to the day to day
Right.
movements of people. And so my company had to shut down immediately, basically.
Okay. Okay. It was a
Um,
Chinese company.
yes, it was a Chinese company.
Right.
There was a new education policy in place, and it shut down overnight, essentially.
Wow.
Um, and so
And this was,
basically,
and sorry to interrupt, and this
yeah,
was how
yeah.
long into you moving in full time?
This was about 2 or 3 years
Oh,
working
that's
with
not
this
bad.
company.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, yeah. I was working, yeah, I was really established in the company.
Right.
But it was this moment of like everything was so secure, stable, and steady to all of a sudden,
Yeah.
like your world being shaken.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the company was shutting down, it wasn't bringing any more students, and you only had the time from the notice to finish with your current students because they were on contracts with the company. So finish up, we'll pay you for that, and then we're gonna close it. We're gonna close up shop.
Got it.
And so it was this. It was daunting. It was like, oh my goodness, what do I do? How can I even like sustain myself? Am I gonna go back into public education? Am I gonna shift careers? All of these questions came rushing in,
Right.
and really about like worry about how am I going to make it to the next month, right? Because I
Right.
was
Right.
living on my own, I was independent. My family did not have the resources to support me.
Right.
So it was just like either I make or break it, basically. And During this time, I was part of, there were many Facebook groups that kind of rallied all of these teachers in
Hmm.
one place. And so we were all on there together being really frantic and what's the saying? A chicken without a head, like just running around. Like, what do we do? What do we
Right.
do?
A bull in a
Um,
china shop is another idiom. Is that the right one? I don't know.
a bullet. I haven't heard of that one. A bullet.
A
No,
bull in a
a
china
bull.
shop.
Bull in a china shop. I. You know what? I think I know of something in Spanish like that. I don't know about English though.
Right. I learned this idiom. I think it's an idiom
Yeah.
very recently, like probably 3 months back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of it. I heard it, but it rings a bell.
Cool.
Anyways, um, so it there was
You were
a
talking about the
yeah,
Facebook group.
yes,
I'm just yeah.
there was a um what am I there was a mentor who had his YouTube channel going strong. He was helping teachers onboard and apply into these companies
Right.
before this situation happened. And
Right.
so, he was someone that was trustworthy within the industry and the community, and someone that I respected. I did have that trust with him. And so
Right.
he came out in this community with this new course. He was like, hey, teachers, like, this is shutting down. How can you still continue this if you want to continue this?
Okay.
And so um, that was my like first step into transitioning into entrepreneurship. Um,
Right.
Seeing this person offer me a solution to my problem, a product. Um, and it was really, what emotion could I use to describe it? Um, I just couldn't believe it. I had this preconceived notion of
Okay.
courses as these like um as these old commercials in the 90s of like, get these 12 tapes and learn how to master your personal finance. Do you know what I mean?
Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah.
That would come out like in the evening. Like that's what I had in my mind. So when someone in the Facebook community was offering me a course, I was like, wait, what do you mean? Like it just didn't it wasn't fathomable in my like dimension of reality, my perspective of reality.
Right.
But then, speaking to the people in my network and in my personal life, they were like, heck yeah, this person can guide you and coach you into doing what you got to do and still like keep at it.
Right.
Why not make the investment? Why not purchase it?
Right.
And I think sometimes I don't think. I am sometimes a stubborn person. And I was like, no, I'm not going to pay someone to teach me things that I know I can potentially like search on Google or like find the information on YouTube. And they were like, okay, that's true, but um, are you going to start Googling once you do have the information? How are you going to implement it? What about the community? Like, how are you going to do this alone? Like, you need people to keep you
Yeah.
accountable.
Yeah.
And so I reflected and I was like, okay, let's do it. Mind you, I was in this moment where I was losing my job. I had my savings and I had to really protect that savings because that was what's gonna, get me through some of the
Yeah.
tough times that I was gonna transition. I was living, paying my bills. And so it took a lot for me to take from a limited amount of economical resources that I had to
Right.
invest in something that it would be a catalyst like a catalyst in my life. It would change me forever.
Right.
I invested in the course and I learned about how to transition from teaching in this company to being an independent online teacher with his own business, so with my own business.
Right.
I learned a lot of new concepts that I didn't understand.
Mm.
And like, how we mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, it all comes down to like business. I did not understand all of
Yeah.
the business technicalities, skills, strategies, and implementation that my company was doing for me on my behalf,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that I could teach.
Right.
And so it was like, whoa, okay. I had to like master a lot of skills. And I always go back to my curiosity nature. I think
Right.
that's always like kept me going. I'm like, okay, well, let's learn these new skills. Why not?
Right.
And I remember, if I could add on,
Of course.
I remember completing the course, having my business name for the first time. And I was in my living room with my current roommates and some other friends. And it was time to send out the first sales pitch. It was time to first send out the first, like, hey,
Right.
I'm starting this new business. Let's get you signed up and let's start this journey together. And it took me hours. there was there was this huge barrier, this huge wall in my
Right.
mind
Right.
that was so afraid to take a chance, and to shift my own belief values, to shift my sense of confidence from self doubt into trusting my abilities, from shifting this scarcity mindset into an abundant mindset, from shifting this traditional life path that I was raised on
Right.
to this new wild which way life path. I had to deal with a lot of, like, I had to confront myself. A lot of my life pillars, I had to confront that in those hours that night. Um, it was life changing, literally,
Right.
to send that message. And what was so, I, to be quite honest with you, I kind of broke down and I cried and everything because it was just a huge shift for
Yeah.
me. It was
Yeah.
really foundational. Like it I would say it threw away my foundation at that moment.
Right.
Um, and that does sound dramatic, but at the end of the day, I did send the message, and within the hour or two that passed, um, I got a message back saying, "Hey, Chris, sure, let's sign my child up for your English program,
Wow.
and let's go for it."
Great.
And I have that screenshot in my phone and I have it in my favorites because for me, it was that it was a fundamental shift in my belief system. It
Yeah.
was someone paying me because they trusted my skills, because they
Right.
saw who I was,
Right.
because they valued me, they valued my worth. And so to get that messaging from someone was mind blowing, was so catastrophic within me. I was like, oh my goodness, someone believes in me. Someone thinks that I can continue, on my own, teaching their student. And so, yeah, that was kind of that day in a nutshell, my shift into entrepreneurship.
Great. Amazing. I can totally relate because I think that message would have made you think, oh, I can do it. You just have to do so and so and so and so, and things will happen. And
Yes, exactly.
yeah, it's not left to chance. It's not left to random luck or whatever. It's a process.
No. you must take action. I think that was one of the lessons I learned. If
Yeah.
I had not sent that message out,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know if it was a no. I wouldn't know if it was a yes. I would have
Right.
just been stuck in limbo, living different movie scenarios in my head without any factual, truth.
Great. So, Chris, after the company shut down, you're not working for anybody anymore. You're doing your own thing. You acquire your students yourself, and you're running this business yourself as a
Yes, that's
teacherpreneur.
correct. Yes.
Wow, amazing.
So yeah, that was my first shift into being an independent teacher and having my own tutoring business. And I don't know if I could talk about, I guess, my next shift into my next season of life into helping teachers do the same. Could
Yeah,
I
that's
go
yeah. The
into?
yeah, sure. One of my question before that, which could be a good, I think an introduction is to first
Yeah.
share the fact that teaching is different. Just because you teach doesn't mean you can run your own teaching business. I'm not trying to discourage or be negative here. The point I'm trying to make is that's they are two different things. And I think that's probably what was my takeaway when you said, you needed that, you were hesitant to buy a course that was going to show you how exactly to do that. And I think your journey is pretty much an example that, okay, a great teacher, you also acknowledge that the online company was doing so much for you and you didn't have to do any of those. And for you to be able to do that, you needed a community, you needed a mentor, you needed, information to go about and do that. So yeah, please talk about this. This is the most exciting stuff.
Yes, it's so important to understand that we're in the era of like information overload. So yes, you can go get all the information you need, but who is going to teach you how to use it, how to take that action? I don't think that's out there yet. Perhaps with in time with these new technologies that are coming out, okay, maybe. But at this moment, there's that person that needs to kind of support you and be like, hey, come
Right,
on, let's take action. So I
right.
think that's very important.
Okay,
So I finished teaching my last students in the company.
right,
So it was these two timelines going at the same time. I
right.
was finishing up those last contracts that
Mm-hmm.
I was obligated to teach, and I was starting my own tutoring business. And so when my contracts finished and I was finally all fully independent, I was like, okay, I don't have that many students. What do I do now? I was in this like, uh-oh, feeling, like this free fall, if you will.
You're talking about the
And
time when you started your own thing. That's when you're saying that you
yes,
didn't have many students. Right.
I
Got it.
didn't. I didn't. And this is so through the course, there was a community, as I said, and this is where I found my co-founder, my business partner today.
Right.
Um, Through this community, someone said, "I have 0 students. How is there a way to like find more students within the Chinese market? Because that's where my expertise was."
Okay.
Um, and so I reached out to her because I was like, hey, I have 1/2 students in my business right now, and I need more to make this work.
Right.
What are you doing to get more students?
Right.
And they got back to me
Hmm.
telling me about a social media app in China that gave them an access into the market
Hmm.
to promote their business through social media marketing, which resulted in my business partner getting going from 0 students to about 15 students in her business in just 1 month.
Wow. Okay.
And I was like, whoa, you have to tell me about this app.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I downloaded it, and it was all in Chinese.
Right.
And I was like, okay, here we go. Another learning curve, right? But again, I'm going to go back to my curiosity nature. I was like very curious on how things would work. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just have to screenshot, go to Google Translate. Thankfully, there's a tool that's easy to use that can, translate things on the whim. And
Right.
so through that, I played around and I started posting. And so I would kind of post random things, not, looking back, I would tell myself, what are you doing? Um, but, I was learning, I was
But you had to
experimenting.
start somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to start somewhere. You have to, I wouldn't know what I know now if I didn't do those
Without that.
first
Yeah.
posts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And through that, I was starting to get my first messages, my first private messages about like, hey, how could I have an audition, a trial lesson with you on your business? At the same time, I was also getting help from my first clients, and I think that's so pivotal in a business, your first
Right.
clients, because they were also using word of mouth to get to other students so that they can come into my business too.
Right.
And
Right.
so, in combination of putting things into action and kind of letting things start rolling, things start doing things, start moving, I was able to get to grow my student base from about 1 or 2 to 10 to 12 and over in just a month,
Wow. Okay.
through Chinese social media marketing and through a referral system that I had implemented within my tutoring business. And so then my now business partner was like, I'm sure there are teachers out there that need this same framework that we implemented
Right.
so that they could also start to grow their student base within the Chinese market.
Right.
And she was like, let's start a Facebook group. And I was
Okay.
like, okay, are you sure? Like, are we ready? Are we
Are we
not?
there yet? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It
The
was
imposter syndrome.
very, yes, exactly. It was these same thoughts that I had just, a few months ago of like, am I going to be still that great teacher? Am I going to be able to collect payments? Am I going to be able to schedule my students? Am I going to be able to do all these things?
Right.
All of this just very, um, these like, this inner self that is trying to bring you down.
Right.
Um, I, this is very personal, but I do want to share it. I like to name these inner voices.
Right. Right.
um, One of them I named Barbara.
Okay.
No, I have no beef with anyone named Barbara. I don't know why it came to be. I'm so sorry for anyone who's out there. It's a beautiful name in Spanish. It has this passion, Barbara. So anyways,
Oh, that
so
was a nice
I
Spanish accent.
thank you, thank you. So it was this, I was in the same place talking to Barbara and being like, hey, I need you to not be here right now because I got to do this. I got to push into my new season of life. And
Right.
so we
Right.
started the Facebook community together.
Right.
At the time, what's still called Shaohongshu for Teachers. And we
Oh, right.
started
I'm
off.
sorry. I'm gonna like
Yes,
interrupt you because that was gonna. I was
that's
gonna ask you, how do you pronounce that Shaohongshu?
yeah, Shao. I'm gonna butcher it too. Don't worry. I think it's Shaohongshu.
Shaohongshu. That's the Chinese platform you're talking about.
Exactly. That's the Chinese social media platform that's accessible to people that are not Chinese nationals. In
Right.
English, we say well, in English, it literally translates into the little red book. So
The
little red
okay.
book,
Okay. Okay.
or LRB.
Right.
Or we also say XHS, which doesn't really roll off the tongue really nicely.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. LRB is better.
um, yeah, LRB is better. We can go use LRB from now on if you want, because Shaohongshu is, I know I'm saying it wrong, and it's just, yeah, it's difficult to say. I don't know Chinese, by the way. I still want to learn.
Great. I'm so sorry to interrupt you there because Shaohongshu is, I'm comfortable pronouncing it, even though it might be wrong. You were talking about, you just started the Facebook group
Yes.
about, yeah.
Yeah, so it was called Shaohongshu for Teachers, and immediately we started getting requests, and people were jumping in and being like, "What's this?" And we were starting to explain, like, "Hey, this is a Chinese social media platform
Right.
that is a way for non-Chinese nationals to start marketing their businesses." And so it's something um, pivotal because it was an opportunity, a space for teachers to use as their to build their brand presence, right?
Right. Right.
China is complicated in its nature of, what goes in and out of China if
Right.
you're not a Chinese national.
Right.
So this was really powerful because other Chinese social media platforms, you can't register if you don't have a Chinese ID
Right.
number. So yeah, we started that, and so that was the first shift into um, becoming a coach, a
Cool.
consultant, a
Right.
mentor for teachers.
Right.
That was also really a big change in my life. I was like, how am I going to help people? Like,
Yeah.
how am I going to do it? It's
Right.
these, Barbara and I discussing, like, okay, be quiet now, Barbara.
No, that's a
um,
very interesting thing. It might be a little out of place, but I think it warrants at least a couple of minutes for you to be able to identify that and then compartmentalize and keep it away. I think that's commendable, right? Because that's a skill in itself. It's called, I think it's being self-aware, and
yes,
self-awareness is not very common, and it's not very easy because most of them are operating from an unconscious level.
absolutely.
Yeah, so that's a positive thing, right? So that's great.
Yeah.
Probably I'm sure you'll have a space in your course where you help others keep their Barbaras away as well.
Yes.
Great.
um, so yeah, I think what um, made that final push, if you will, my final change. So, I mean, I'm currently still teaching my students. I still have my
Okay.
online business going, but
Right.
now we are starting this project. So our project is called Create and Funnel. And I'm the co-founder of Create and Funnel. And so we help teachers grow
Right.
their student base
Right.
specifically through the Chinese market and specifically through Chinese social media marketing. Um, and our first big event or service, if you will, was a challenge. It was a
Mm.
5-day challenge. We called it the Shaohongshu Bootcamp. And it was a lot of work because it reminded me of the time when I first got into my English classroom and the teacher was like, okay, teach us English today. And I drew a blank. I was like, I know the language. I understand it so well. It's
Right.
it's what I grew up with.
Right. Right. Right.
How am I able to teach this now? Like, how do I take 20 years of, language immersion into a 50-minute class?
Right.
And so I was in the same spot. I was like, how do I take about half a year of turmoil, of changes, of being self-aware, of combating those thoughts, of experimenting, of trying, failing, trying again. How do I take that into a framework so that others could learn and skip all of that trial and error and be able to get to success much
Yeah.
faster than I did?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was in that same spot with this bootcamp. I was like, oh my goodness, how do we do it? But together we thought about, okay, what are the key things that we had to learn so
Right.
that we could understand? So basically, registering on the app, then understanding your profile, how to set it up, understanding the algorithm, understanding what to post, how to say it, being okay with not knowing Chinese if you don't know it, and operating in an app in a foreign language to you,
Right.
and being able to be interactive with the user of the app
Right.
whose main language is Chinese,
Right.
and understanding that you have to meet them where they're at, even if you don't speak Chinese.
Right.
So we took all of that into 5 intense days. And it was our first batch of 50 teachers that we were able to
One
coach.
five or 50?
No, 50, 50, 50.
Whoa. Okay.
At the time, our group had about 300 members or so.
Oh, this is
So,
the Facebook group that you created.
yes, this is the very, very beginning. This was a year ago, actually, a year ago. We
Okay,
started Creative Funnel a year ago.
Chris, something went off for me, and I'm gonna like document it here right now while it's still fresh in my mind.
Go for it.
For people who are listening in, you know, Chris is talking about helping others with Shaohongshu. But if there is a skill that you know, easiest way to monetize that is go to Facebook, create a group, let members join in. And the first step you do is probably if you've got 300 people, you bring in 50 people and start a 5-day challenge like Chris. It's as simple as that, right? And probably this is coming from years of research and trials from Chris, and this is distilled and just actionable steps here for people who want to monetize this skill.
Yes, it's about taking action. I'll say it 100 more times if I have to. It was my business partner and I coming together, opening up the Facebook group, doing it, letting people
Right.
come in. And then, of course, we were new to this still. We were new to the consultant service, the being coaches, and manage and understanding those business skills, because those are a whole new set of business skills, right? And
Right.
so understanding that we have to build trust with these members. And so our first 5-day challenge was free.
Free. Yeah.
We did offer a service. We did offer a replay option, which we sold for a very low price point, so that if people wanted to watch, they could come
Mm.
back to it. So we
And
would, I
how many
think
hours a day did you do this 5-day challenge?
it was about an hour and a half every day for 5 days.
And of course, they'll have a
Um,
lot to do after that 1.5 hours, right?
yes. Well, the first we did create a workbook,
Right.
but I think one of the first lessons that I learned that after that boot camp was that it wasn't so much more about teaching, because we were just teaching.
Right.
What we had forgotten, perhaps, and something that we improved on later, of course,
Right.
was about giving the ability to the other teachers to take action too.
Mm.
So giving them the opportunity to be like, okay, well, when are you going to download the app? When are you going to start your writing your bio? When are
Right.
you going to start creating your first video?
Right.
So, anyways, that was a little learning lesson. But yeah, so it's about taking action. It's about doing this, and I had no expertise in this realm, in this industry. All my life was education. I had mastered being an online teacher. I
Right.
had just, you know, learned, or I wouldn't say mastered, I just learned about in that time frame how to run a business for independent teaching. And now I had this whole new like business to like handle.
Right.
Um, and so for me, it came down to research. I did spend the hours Googling, okay, so, oh, you need to have an audience, right? Then you need to have a way to attract this audience so that they know that you exist and that they know that they can be helped by you. And then you have to build that trust, which was through our first free boot camp with the upsell option of a replay.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Chris, I've got a long list of questions, but before that, I want to clarify this. Are your audience specific to the American geography, or is it? I mean, what I mean to ask is, should they be native English speakers?
No.
No.
Our community is a mixture. Our customer base is mainly from three countries: the US, the UK, and South Africa. We also help teachers who want to teach Spanish as a second language.
Okay.
And there are a lot of teachers in our community who are from the Philippines, for example, that have learned English.
Okay.
And so, yeah, my business partner and I have a little come into debate when we talk about when we use terminologies like native and non-native,
Right.
because it does shape one's entrepreneurial mindset. So that's why we're careful also when we use those terms.
Right. So for the people from Philippines, right, who are
Yes.
trained, what do they need to be certified, or is it just who's validating?
So for well, what we teach is that when it comes to certification and things like that, it's good to have it. But at the end of the day, being an entrepreneur and being a teacher entrepreneur, I and what I've learned through coaching teachers is that it comes down to how you can solve someone's problem,
Right.
because I think that's what our prospective client will look at first before any qualification, certification. So if you can transmit that message of like, I can and I will help your student learn English,
Right.
that's gonna be the thing that attracts someone. I like to think of it as like more like technical professions. Like when I'm looking for a doctor, um, the first thing that comes to mind is like, okay, can I Google this doctor and can I find some reviews to see if he's
Right.
like someone that's trustworthy?
Right.
Then I look at maybe even I don't even maybe look at it if I trust the reviews enough.
Right.
But the qualifications kind of come second, in my opinion.
Got it. So even though you said your audience are majorly from the US, UK, and South Africa, but people, if they're listening from other parts of the world, you're open to them as well. Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I
The only
think
qualification is
um,
they need to know English. They need to be able to teach English as well.
um, not now. I wouldn't limit our customer base to just teaching English.
Right.
That is where our expertise lies in, of course, and
Hmm.
that's what we best know and how we could best mentor you. But
Right.
we've had teachers who've come to us who are music teachers that want to teach online.
Right.
We
Right.
have
Right.
art teachers that want to teach online. So I would say anyone who is wanting to start an online
Got it.
tutoring business.
Amazing. Got it. Okay. I think finally I'm ready to get into the main topic.
Okay, let's do it. Yeah.
So your email ID was createandfunnel@gmail.com, right? I was like wondering, okay, I've heard of funnel and I've tried to
Mhm,
wrap my head around it and I've understood to a certain extent what a funnel is. But it's
mhm,
just
mhm.
that different people have different funnels. And
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, so can you start off explaining to the listeners what is a funnel and everything that you can talk about it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, yeah, I also had to learn all these like marketing terminologies, if you will, to understand what other people are talking within the industry, right? Because when we're
Right,
learning something, there is specific vocabulary that's tied to it. So that's
right,
always important to note. And so for me, a funnel is a way to attract your prospective client and get them into your program, business, if you will, and be able to serve them. So give them that solution. And
right,
of course, that's, our goal is that it's through a product, a paid service, or even a membership, if you will.
right,
So it's for me, it's like this highway lane that one has to follow. They come across you. They're like, okay, cool. Who is this? Now, what direction do I need to take so that I can keep continuing to work with this person? So that's what I think a funnel is.
great, great. So there's the highway already, and then determining the direction is going into specific funnel. So highway would be a funnel,
Yes,
and then the direction would is the place where you choose what funnel is what you want in the
exactly,
internet.
exactly.
Right,
Yes, yes. And I think there's many ways to go about the direction you want to take.
right.
So I don't know if you want to get into the specifics of that.
Yeah, totally. For example, I think your funnel, the way if I have to map it, the start of your Facebook group, I think was a funnel for you. Is that correct?
Correct. Correct. Yes, it's where we first started. Our first funnel, if you will, was opening up our Facebook community to the teachers out, online teachers out there. At the time, it was online ESL teachers who
Right,
wanted to continue in the Chinese market. And then our next funnel, if you will, was this 5-day challenge. So, this
right,
opportunity for our audience to see how we can get them from where they are now to where they want to be. So,
right,
exposing them to the ways that we view this framework of steps and to get a chance to know us more because some things come up, things, personal things come up. They can
yeah,
see our mannerisms, our gestures.
yeah.
So yeah, that was the first fundamental change that we had in our funnel, was this big 5-day challenge.
Got it. So when you work with teachers, Chris, is your funnel the same for all of them, or is it customized? Say, for example, you said in teaching there are so many domains, right? One is English, it could be art, music, so on and so forth. So does it change, or do you only ask the questions where your teachers come up with the solutions to their own thing, or what? How exactly do you work with aspiring teachers who are looking to build their own independent uh, private tutoring system?
Yes, yes. So like I said, we just got to our year anniversary about a week ago. So we've been in business for 12 months.
Amazing,
Um,
congratulations.
thank you. it's
That's big.
been it's been a
That's big.
lot. It's been a lot. Yes, I feel so successful to make it to that 12-month mark. I think it's a milestone,
Okay, here's a
an
fun
important one.
fact. I don't know about the whole world. At least in India, we have this statistic from the Ministry of Corporate Affairs that say
Oh, please share. Yes.
95% of businesses shut down within 1 year.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
you're already in the top 5%.
I'm
Congratulations to you.
already going. Yes, I think it's such a pivotal milestone. It's so like, wow, you've been doing this for 12 months.
Yeah.
That's like 300. That's 365 days. That's so many hours.
Yeah.
Anyways, I get chills. So I would say I want to go back a little bit at the beginning of our business because some of the changes that you mentioned are just happening now in real time as we
Okay.
adapt to our customer base that keeps on evolving and growing.
Okay.
At the very beginning, though, what with the audience that needed our support were teachers who were trying to get more students, specifically in the Chinese market. So after the boot camp, we thought about, okay, how can we, when someone gets to us, how can we make sure that they understand what we do? And so we came up with a free guide, a free PDF guide called The Do's and Don'ts of Getting Started on Shaohongshu, which is a simple 2-page PDF that
Right.
shows you how to download and register on the app.
Right.
Then through that, we follow up with them through some emails, an email sequence, if you will,
Right.
that to introduce ourselves to this new person and what we've done, how we can help them, and setting them up to get onto the next boot camp that we would host in our beginning stages.
Right.
So that's how we would do that. Now I am trying now, and what I wanted to, the reason I say that was because in this industry, I think it's so important to stick to one thing. I think if you try to do so many freebies or try to appeal to everyone, it's simply not going to work.
Right.
You have to stick to your guts and to this idea.
Right.
And it's not to say that you can't refine it and make it better.
Right.
But you have to stick to one idea because this is a long-term game. This is a marathon. The audience that you're building has to build trust with you, has to get to know you, has to be able to connect to you, to be related to you, relatable to them. And so if you change up the freebies all of a sudden, it's it's wild. It's
Right.
confusing for someone. And so now, a year later, we are strategizing ways on how to get the right freebie to the right customer. So, for example, within the spectrum of social media marketing, I would say that's kind of more the third or fourth stage of someone going independent. So they have their business like I did. They made the change. They have a student base they have their payment stuff figured out. So they're, almost finished. They're like, okay, I'm going to get the marketing, then I'm going to grow my student base. And then stage 5, which would be scaling and growing your independent tutoring business. So then we identified this need of like those teachers that are still in stage 1, if you will, teachers that are still teaching online through platforms that still are out there that are not based in China, and helping them understand the same shift that my business partner and I had, which was like, okay, it's time to leave this platform and go independent. And so we created a new boot camp for that. We created a new 5-day challenge to help teachers understand both the mindset of that and the very basic steps on how to get started.
Right.
And what we really made sure to do in this boot camp, this new boot camp, and this new direction on this highway of funnels was to make sure that the teachers take action. So
Right.
Prompting them, giving
Right.
them tools to express themselves. We made a separate private Facebook group for them,
Got it.
essentially. So yeah, and now, now I am trying to a new um, a new free resource that I'm trying to curate right now is how to help teachers go from working in an online company into independent teaching.
Got it.
And so that would look more kind of like a mini course, if you will.
Right.
Um, so yeah, it's kind of about experimenting with all these ideas, but I want to go back to where I was a year ago and reiterate that when you do start at the very beginning, stick to one idea, stick to one freebie. These new free resources didn't come until like 10, 11 months into our business. So
Got it.
yeah.
Great. It was interesting, you said creating the right specific freebies for your specific audience. Just because it's free, it just cannot be all over the place. Uh, my next question is, what does a typical funnel structure look like, as a core principle? I'm not asking for specific domains, irrespective of whatever domains, the core principles are going to remain the same. Of course, you're going to be making slight modifications depending on, if it's arts or if it's language and stuff. But on the higher level, what are the different stages of a standard funnel for teachers who want to start independent tutoring business?
Yes. Okay, great. So the basic funnel system, if you will, the framework would be to start with your niche. What we like to call in our business is we say finding your star student. So it's a terminology that we use
Right,
within our business that, matches our brand. And
right,
so we first and foremost, I think before we think about the funnel, we do have to do the work of identifying who is it that you want to go through this highway, because you don't want everyone to go through this highway, because then your highway is not going to work. There's going to be traffic, unnecessary traffic. And so you must first start with your star student or your niche target audience.
right.
um, Ideal customer avatar, ideal customer client. There's so many terms. I could go
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
on.
ICP.
Yes, yes, and on and on and
Yeah.
on. So I think that's first. That's very fundamental.
Okay.
And then you want to build that. You want to make sure that people know that you exist. So that is, and you can do that through either advertising that's paid or free advertising. And right now, um, free advertising is so accessible to everyone and all
Yeah.
that you can go through that. So what I mean by that is social media,
Right.
basically.
Right.
And so branding, making sure that you're out there on social media, and so that people can see you, people can know that you exist. So I think that's a second step, stage two, if you will. And then stage three, specifically with this free marketing resource, is to build trust with your ICP, star student, your niche.
Right.
And you do that through showing what I think is content, quality content, not
Right.
quantity, quality.
Right.
You want to make sure that you're speaking to them. Um, and again, like I say, it is a slow, um, not a slow, it's a long-term game because it can happen really fast too. But it's
Right.
this consistency. Consistency is the word that I was trying to find.
Right.
And through that, I think always having somewhere where they can go. So they like you, they follow you, they're following your content, and they're like, okay, um, now what direction do I go? And so following up with perhaps a free resource that
Right.
shows them a little bit about your knowledge and expertise. So whether that's for an English for a teacher or a tutor, that could look like a workbook. That could look like a free course for a student. that could look like a scheduling system to try out the teacher, a trial student.
Right.
Those are some of the ideas that come into mind. And then
Got
stage three would be um, to educate them on who you are. So if that's through a free resource, following up with emails. If that's through a trial class, following
right.
up with an email, a call even, and understanding and taking the next step to finalizing that sell. So getting them to park after going through this highway, if you will. And so achieving that point of where they do make a purchase and do invest in your program. So that's a little bit about the structure.
This is great, Chris. Yeah, very valuable. Thank you so much. Just to summarize, first step, before even you get into the funnel, you need to identify your star student, or figure out as much as possible about your ideal customer profile, persona, avatar, whatever you want to call it. Next step is for you to be able to put yourself out there, have a social media handle on different platforms, and then you start building trust. How do you build trust? By putting out quality content out there. And when they look at your content, when they like you, when they follow you, what next? This is where you validate further by giving a free resource about what you do. And then while they take away this free resource, you collect some information in exchange, such as their email
Right.
ID. And this is how you get access to their private communication channel. And then you probably make your pitch, or this is where you
Yes.
get them to try and park, as you said, in the highway. This is great. Chris, while you were talking about this, I had a question, or I had this situation, and I was wondering, okay, how do you deal with this? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's one thing for you to have adults as customers, but then when there are, let's say you're teaching kids English, let's say, in this specific scenario, the consumer is the kid, but the decision maker might be the parent.
Right.
So who are you? How do you solve the ICP for this?
Yes, yes. That's a great question. So most of my students are ages 3 to 10. So
Right.
I dealt with this and I still deal with this.
Okay.
And so for me, it's having content. Um, I don't want to give like numbers, but having a part of your content that is educating the decision maker, which is the parent or the guardian, but also having a part of your content that that decision maker can show to their
Right.
child.
Right.
Be
Right.
like,
Right.
hey,
It's a
look at
combination.
this funny guy. And because when they're doing that, the decision maker is looking at the children's reaction, because that will inform their decision to whether that will be part of the equation as to, am I going to sign up with his professor? So I would say a combination of content. So what does that look like? For example, let's say you want to talk about, I'm going to go off my example, my situation. So phonics. My ICP is about attracting beginner students, specifically with phonics and beginner
Right.
pronunciation. So a hook can be like, does how can you get your child to read at X level?
Mm.
Well, you actually have to start with yada yada yada. So this is speaking to the decision maker, to that adult,
Right.
because
Right.
again, social media marketing, specifically with kids, it's very protected, and so the target audience will always be towards the adult, the user on the app. But then I have videos of me in my classroom, for example, so that they can see me teach. And
Right.
then I have some funny story time videos where I have my puppets and my graphics.
Right.
Um, and so I kind of appeal, if you will, to all of the senses,
Right.
because at the end of the day, that's the nature of things. Specifically, when you're trying to target children, you have to go through that middle person, which is the one who's going to sign up for your services.
Right. Great. So, yeah, you need to take into consideration the decision maker as well as the end consumer, because the decision maker is going to show the funny guy. Look at this funny guy. And this brings me to another interesting. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting to me, but
Go for
pretty.
it.
You said funny two times at least, and I realize now. And you also said the kids that you teach are in the age group between 3 to 10. And
Mhm.
have you ever been in a situation when some of the people that you coach, their student age group was between 3 and 10, and you thought to yourself, "Hey, you got to be way more funnier than this for you to be able to connect with 3 and 10."
I actually am helping a current teacher on a one-on-one coaching service that is appealing to this younger group, more not 3 year olds, more so from 6 to 12. It's still pretty young though.
Yeah, yeah,
But um, this teacher, my client, they're not as smiley and funny and energetic. They don't want to do that.
right,
And that's okay. I think that's okay. I say funny because that's how I teach. I love making them laugh, and it it comes from me. And it's not forced. It's not.
natural.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say it's not a performance. It is a performance. I am performing,
Okay,
but it's natural, right? It's not like
you like
I
doing it.
must do it. Yeah. So I would say, so I told my client, hey, don't worry about that. Let's look at your skill set as a whole and seeing what could appeal, because you don't want to appeal to the child that needs a funny guy teacher. You want to appeal to the student that's a little bit more shy, that's a little bit more serious because of their nature, who
Right, right,
that student is. And that's who we want to match you up with, right?
right.
Someone that works well with a more serious or structured nature, if you will. So, yeah.
Great. So you're saying that you don't have to really be funny. I mean, not all the kids aged between 6 and 12 need teachers to be a little funny.
No.
Some kids also need serious teachers. So it depends upon who you are
Yes.
looking at. So you might have to also be
Hey.
serious, or
Mhm.
you might also have to be funny depending on who you're teaching to.
I think with kids, it also comes down to the decision maker. So if the parent or guardian doesn't want a funny guy for their children, they're not going to hire you, even if the kid does want it, right? So
Right.
there's that complication and challenge. But so yeah,
But that can again be a niche, right? I mean, uh,
right,
uh,
exactly.
right. If somebody is like, no, man, you know what? I'm a teacher who likes to perform, who likes to crack some jokes and be a little funny, you can still stick to being that way and you'll still find your market. And if you're a teacher who's not funny, who's serious, you can still be yourself and you'll still find your market. So there's a market for all
I
styles and types.
Absolutely. I've seen teachers who are even more extreme than I am. They dress up, they have puppets. Their like classroom is this incredible scenario, like scenario scene. And then I've also, teachers who are more like quiet, more reserved,
Right.
but that are effective because they have a structure to their teaching. So yeah.
Got it. Got it, Chris. This is great. Chris, I wanted to, ask you this also. You were talking about the Chinese market. Can you throw some light? What is this Chinese market? What's going on exactly? Why is there so much interest amongst the Chinese to learn English? The reason I'm asking you this question is because China is kind of like a self-sufficient, they've made everything to suit their style, right? They're not really coming out of China, and
Right.
at least not the majority of them. So what is this, the need, and what's the demand, and what's the future like?
Yes. So the demand within the Chinese market is strong because they see potential for their children, for the young generation. Um, they see English as a tool for advancement. If that person decides to go abroad or
Hmm.
work with an international company,
Right.
they see it as vital to their success. So, kind of parallel to my parents' vision of a traditional life path, that's a key factor to them. So, that's where the demand comes from within the Chinese market. Um,
Right.
and there's so much out there to meet that need because there's so much of a population, right? So
Right.
there are people who grew up learning English, who are teaching in person, in place, online teachers like us, and then people who learn English at a later stage in their life and are teaching it now. So there's a lot of ways that the need is being met or the demand is being met. But it gets complicated, of course, when we take into consideration the um, socio-political history of China,
Yeah.
um, within their own history and also within the globalized industry history timeline.
Right.
And so we see this nature of control, of vigilancy. And so, yes, there is a risk when you're working with the Chinese market. I'm going to be honest about it.
Hmm.
Look at what happened with my company.
Yeah.
I was at the peak. I was booked. I was steady, stable, and all of a sudden, some new government policies took that all away.
Right.
Um, but that's not to say that the need disappears because all of a sudden policymakers say this is bad.
Right.
That doesn't mean the need disappears overnight. There's still a need.
Right. Right.
And so
Right.
it happens. This happens in the Chinese market. Um, for the teachers that have gone through our services and who've had success and have a strong student base, um, the next step is always to scale and diversify. And so we talk about diversification because we know that there's a risk when working with the Chinese market because, um, you know, I think that's true to any business. I think any business, any entrepreneurship, any company, there's a risk that
Yeah.
you're accepting when you become an entrepreneurship. I was reflecting about this the other day. I was like, um, wow, I really like jumped off of that cliff and free fall and I landed, right?
Yeah.
Thankfully. But I've also could have not landed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a certain risk that we also try to reiterate and teach to teachers who are wanting to make that change, hey, like you have to know that this isn't a nice, stable, steady thing. This is a ever changing constant. And so, that's just like a disclaimer, if you will. The future of the need in the Chinese market, I think it's not going to go away.
Right.
I think there's still going to be that need. And if maybe, and then you have to also consider policy changes, right? Policies can change again, and then we'll be able to access the Chinese market without having to go around the bush, if you will. Um, So yeah, that's a little bit about my take on that.
Great. That really is insightful. And Chris, for teachers who are wondering, how much, if you can just say, okay, you know what, if you work a broad spectrum of numbers, like if you're working for 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, so many students, this is how much time you take to finish. What is the range of money that a teacher can make independently?
Yes. So within the Chinese market, we always say that you can charge between $40 to $50 an hour. I started charging $30 an hour when I first went independent, and then was able to raise my prices.
Right.
And now I'm in between that rate. Um, so that's what we say to all of our teachers currently. A fun fact: a teacher shared with us that because they have a relationship with their parent clients, that a music teacher in China was able to get about, I think I'm not going to say the correct data point, but a guesstimate.
Right.
It was about 100 or 120 per hour for
Wow.
1 hour of music lessons. So education is so valued in the Chinese market. And
Right.
that's why we see that need. And that's why we also push and encourage towards that market, because it's where it's the most profitable right now. So, so a teacher could make easily um, in a month, what would that be? About um, the number, the math I can't do right now, but it's about that range, 40 to 50 an hour, um,
Right.
for offering your services.
Got it. Anywhere between, you know, the upper limit, say $10,000 a month, maybe $5,000 being the lower limit, $10,000 being the upper limit.
Yeah. I've seen teachers report back to me with even 15K a month because they're growing their student base. So within that range, let's say 5 to 15.
And if the right steps are followed, Chris, how long, what is the ramp up period for a teacher to go from zero to, let's say, let's not talk too much, let's keep $5,000, right? Zero
Yeah.
to $5,000. What is the typical time period it takes for a teacher to reach that stage?
Yes. So we've seen anywhere from 30 days to about 90 days, um,
Wow.
based
Okay.
on the based on the teacher. I think it comes down, this is a two-way street, right? I can only do so much,
Yeah.
but the teacher also has to have that ambition, that take
Of
action
course. Yeah.
mentality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so we've seen about that time range. I think our most latest teacher took a bit longer, between 4 to 5 months, but that was because they were uh, growing, on a professional level. So yeah, I would say within that range.
Great. And another one more question, just for the sake of teachers, to that nitty
Yes.
gritty details, right? If it is that, you said the Chinese students typically opt for these classes after their school hours, right? So, what is their timing like? So, is it 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Chinese time? Is this that window?
Yes, I would say it's more around 4 p.m. till 10, 11 p.m.
Wow, Chinese
So
time. So,
there's an
students are willing to
extensive,
sit even at 10 p.m. in the night, their time.
yeah. I currently have students who it's 10 p.m. and we're in class.
Great. And
So yes.
this is spread across China, or is it concentrated around, say, important cities like Beijing and
Oh, great question. Great question. Yes. So there's a system of tiers, if you will, within China.
right,
So there's first tier cities, second tier cities, and third tier cities.
right,
And that correlates to the socioeconomic status of the population within those cities. So
right,
obviously, we try to encourage teachers to market towards first tier cities. Um, Some cities include Beijing, of course, Shanghai, Shenzhen, because that's where you will be able to negotiate that 40 to 50 per hour rate versus a
Right.
second tier city. You would have to meet them at that market demand, which is about 30 to 30, 25 to 35, if you will. And then, of course, less in the third tier cities. Um, so yeah, I think that answers your question.
It does. It does. Thank you so much, Chris. Yeah, it answers. This is like a clear blueprint. Any information that a teacher needs before them having to make a call in their mind. Whether this is worth taking a step forward or not. I think they would be able to, if they listen to you speak. I think they'd be able to make that decision. And if they make the decision, I think they'd also know a lot more going forward.
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah, anything else? I think this has been, I think I've covered all of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, Chris. But you know what? I'm just going to have the platform open to you. If there's anything that you think that I may not have covered, but okay, yeah, there's this one thing that I want to see, because this is online, right?
Yes.
This is another piece of this puzzle, is the way I look at it. The online infrastructure, finally. Of course, people are very used to Google Meet or Zoom and stuff like that. But let's, keeping English as the specific thing. What are the tools that a teacher need to be, accustomed to?
Yes.
It could be software as well as hardware. Sorry.
Yes, yes. That's a great question. I was actually going to talk about tools of the trade.
Right.
I really like what you said about the puzzle. It is really a puzzle when it comes to your own tutoring business. Tools of the trade. So, equipment that you need to just start is a good internet, a laptop that can handle your camera being on for X amount of hours. And, you could even start out with headphones that are cabled, preferably not wireless. Then you would have to pick the platform where you're going to be teaching and having this interaction with your student. And so we recommend three platforms. So of course, everyone knows about Zoom. Zoom is accessible in China. I would not use Google Meet because Google and China are not compatible.
Right, right.
um, then a platform that is based in China and Beijing is called Klassen, and it's a platform I use specifically. And Klassen is well adapted to teach English. It has a
Can you
whiteboard.
can
You
you
can
please spell that,
record.
please?
Yes, absolutely. Classin. Klassen.
Class. Got it. Cool.
Yes. And so you can record your lessons. There's a chat system incorporated, a scheduling system, so it's really well integrated. There's also newer companies like Koala Go, which is all browser based. So if you want to, stay on Google Chrome and not download anything, it's a great option. That is more kid friendly. I wouldn't use those. I wouldn't recommend for maybe an older student to use that.
Right.
And then there's some new platforms that I'm discovering, and we're researching it. We haven't said, hey, go use this yet. But there are platforms that are trying to integrate, even, this is going into the future, but tools like AI. And so thinking about the possibilities
Yeah.
through that
Yeah.
and incorporating into the tools of the learning environment.
Right.
So that's what I would start off with, and a good and your nightstand light. Take off the lampshade and put it next to your computer. That is the
Right.
basics. Of course, then we can talk about all the great ways to upgrade and invest in your business.
Of
So
course.
having a great microphone, a great camera, actual studio lighting, maybe two I like to use two screens. So, you can grow steadily as your business evolves, and you invest back into your business. So, yeah.
Got it. Do you need that writing pad?
Writing pad. I've
Like
seen
an
some teachers use it. I don't personally use one. I
okay.
do have a physical whiteboard that I bought on
Right.
Amazon. It's the size of my head a little bit or more, and I can use it to help
Right. Right. Right.
I can teach there's also webcam softwares. I'm using my webcam software right now that can help
Right.
me also digitalize the teaching environment.
Got it. And when you spoke about Classin and Koala Go, are they
Yes.
in addition to Zoom or are they substitutes for Zoom?
I would say they're substitutes. They're all
Okay.
independent
Got it.
platforms. I wouldn't equate them in any way. They're
Right.
different, and I think they're for different audiences.
Right.
I think, I mean, I'm biased, and I'm going to say that Classin is the one that's the most well-rounded for
Right.
both older students and younger students. Um, so yes.
Got it, Chris. And Chris, the first problem that you faced when you said that you are a native English speaker, you knew English, you know English, but then when it came to your first day of class, you
Oh,
realized
yeah.
that you know what, knowing English is one thing, teaching it is another thing. What
Yes.
did you have to do, and what would your advice be to people in the same position?
Oh gosh, for me it was a very steep learning curve because it was my job and I had to learn how to do that very quickly. First and foremost, what we recommend for the online teacher who wants to teach English is, in this case, you're doing two things for one
Right,
result, which would be going through a cheap TOEFL or TESOL course. That gives you the certification and expertise if someone does ask for that.
right,
But it also gives you a great overview and great foundation on how to teach English because it goes into pedagogy, it goes into methodologies,
right,
um, and it goes into different tactics that you can use, like gamification, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what we recommend. I would also, if I would also go into YouTube. I think there's some great YouTube channels that are teachers that are teaching how to teach teachers so that they can teach online. And we also see this need now coming up in our customer base in Creative Funnel to, for someone that's coming from a different industry. And now they're discovering this online world, right? This online teaching world. And so now we have this challenge of like, okay, there's no platform. We don't want to recommend them going to a platform, of course.
right.
Um, so how can we teach them so that they can teach efficiently and be an expert so that they can deliver the results? So we're also trying to think of a new way um, to get ESL teaching into our services. So yeah.
Great. Awesome. Chris, I think I have spoken to you all the things that I wanted to, all of my questions. My mind is pretty clear and empty now. It's not buzzing with
Okay.
questions as it did an hour ago. Uh, and thank you so much. But, now I'm going to take a step back and let you share, or, if there's anything that you thought you wanted to talk about, please.
Yes. I want to just, I guess, wrap up with this notion of curiosity. I think it's really important for the entrepreneur,
Right,
for any entrepreneur, is to be curious and again, take action. I think being afraid and not going for something is your ultimate failure. It's the thing that will not lead you anywhere. And so, whether it's the Chinese market you choose or other markets for teaching English,
Right.
Or if you're teaching Spanish and now want to, get to English learners, for instance, it's about taking those first steps. So for me, like I said, it would be identifying your star student, your ICP, and then building your brand presence, of course, and then going from there. And always taking a step forward and taking the time to, within all of that rush and that action, taking the time to reflect. I think that's also been a great learning process of mine.
Right.
Was because I got to the point where I did get to burnout, and I did just I just wanted to lay on the couch all day and not do anything, which is bad, not the ideal.
Right.
And so it's about making sure that you don't get to that extreme, and reflect on the ways that you don't push yourself overboard. Something that we're starting to experiment with and research is thinking about an idea of like training wheels, right? So like a bicycle, you learn with training wheels first. And so that person that comes into the online teaching industry and doesn't really know what direction to take, we're looking at potential online teaching marketplaces.
Right.
So it's kind of like this helping hand.
Right.
The marketplace does its own advertising. It brings in customer bases, and then you do have to do the work to stand out amongst other teachers within that same marketplace, right? So it's for us, it's something that we're exploring to see if it could be a stepping stone for those that are just new to the online teaching industry, that we're seeing an increase, because that's the direction this is moving. So perhaps, that really just comes down to accountability and having a network of people that understand you. I think that's quintessential as well. I don't think if I had a network that understood what entrepreneurship means, I think I would have felt very alone and would have given up a long time ago. Because within our groups, it's so normalized to, have this traditional life path that I was raised on, which is, at least from my point of view, from my standpoint, which is, growing up in America,
Right.
High school, college, get a job, retire, and, sayonara. So it's about, not it's about pushing through that, so breaking apart from that normalization of that life path to entrepreneurship, which is a whole other life path, which is a lot more exciting, I think. So yeah, I think those things are critical to an entrepreneur, and teacherpreneurs specifically. Teachers already are entrepreneurs. A lot of them just don't know it. They have all the skills. They can schedule, they can plan, they can organize, they can be leaders, they can be guides, they can be mentors already. So it's about understanding this new world of entrepreneurship with words, skills, strategies, etc., and applying it to your tutoring business. Surrounding yourself with like-minded folk, aka other entrepreneurs, and taking action. So always going forward. So yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris. And if the teachers who are listening to this, if they want to enroll themselves into your program that you're offering, what do they need to do?
Yes, you can head on over to createandfunnel.com. And you can also head on over to @Chris the Online Teacher on Instagram. And those are 2 points of contact.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. I'm sure a lot of them would want to be, doing that right away, because I think you've given a very clear picture. They can see the outcome, they can see the transformation. It's not hazy, and it's only about time for them to take action, maybe.
Yes, take action. reach out to me or go to our website to find out more about us. And yeah, it's about going for it, teachers.
Great. And before we conclude, a few words about your experience on this podcast, if you have anything to say.
Absolutely. Jack, I think it was a great time speaking with you. I think you're such a good listener, and I think that's very important for an invitee, a guest. And so, thank you for guiding, having those guiding questions and guiding the conversation and being receptive and reciprocal in your questions and making sure that, you know, the listener who's listening to this is able to get, you know, be clear on what I'm saying, because I know I can kind of talk in many ways. So thank you so much for being this awesome guide.
It was my pleasure to host you. It's been, although I've spoken to about 28 people so far, I think 30 people, this was so unique. This is one of the first of its kind, the conversation that I've had with you. Not, I can totally say not many of the podcasts that I've had has had so many actionable steps, or that has given a very clear picture of what it looks like, right? And this podcast has done exactly that. And I'm super excited for this to get out there and
Yes. Can't
do its
wait.
thing. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Chris. And